Hi everybody, today we had a great game between Anish Giri and Praggnanandhaa playing Chessable Masters semifinals. First game, Anish Giri had white pieces and he started with e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, bishop c5, Anish castle kingside, knight to f6, d3, d6, c3, castle kingside from Prago, and rook to e1. It's a 50 minutes game, I forgot to tell you. And we have h6 from Prago, h3, a6, a4, a5, knight to b2, bishop e6, and we have b3 from Anish. They are both prepared really well for this game, and they are playing the best moves in the position, so I didn't wanna waste time analyzing. Rook e8, rook c2, bishop b6, knight to f1 from Anish, and knight to h5 from Prago, knight to e3, bishop takes e3, bishop takes e3, and we have queen to f6, queen to e2, and we have knight to f4 attacking that queen, and he simply took with the bishop, queen takes that bishop, and we have a knight to d2, queen go to f6, Anish offered a queen trade and Prago accepted, so he recaptured with the knight, knight to bd8 with the idea to remaneuver this knight into better squares, knight to d2 from Anish, knight to d7, b4, and we had knight to b6 attacking the bishop. He traded the bishop and Prago recapture with the f pawn, knight to b3, that is to capture this pawn. He took a b4 pawn and first kicked that knight to the c8 square and then recapture with your c pawn, knight to a7, d4, try to open the center, e takes d4, knight takes d4, and knight to c6, equal position. All game the position was equal. As I tell, they are good prepared for this game, both players. We had exchanging of knights, b takes c3, rook to c1, a threat is to capture this pawn. He defend with rook to a6, and we have rook to c4 with the idea to double the rooks and maybe put pressure on this pawn. Rook to b8, and if rook to b8, rook to c1, and if you capture this pawn you're gonna lose this pawn, so great defense from Praggnanandhaa. c5, we takes bc5, d5, that is to capture the rook. He captured with e pawn, he takes d pawn, and this rook is attacking a5 pawn, and this pawn attack the rook, so you must move your rook. You go to rook to a4, defend that pawn, and rook to b5, put pressure on this pawn 2 times, and Anish find this rook to d4. If this pawn fall, you're gonna fall d5 pawn, c6, protect the d pawn, and now you're gonna lose the 8 pawn, but Anish again find the great way to defend that pawn. If you capture this pawn, you're gonna he gonna play rook to g4, and threat is to capture this pawn. After if rook take this pawn, rook take this pawn, and then we have a exchange of rooks, and everything is gonna disappear from the board. So Nice defense from Anish. He trying to occupy that g6 square, and we have rook to e1, rook to a7. He didn't want to allow to go to the e7 square and attack that g7 pawn. Rook to e6. Threat is to capture c6. We have rook takes c5, rook to d6, and if you capture this pawn with your a7 rook, you are letting white rook to the 7th rank, which isn't good. So he captured this rook, this pawn on a5, but he gave white this pawn on c6. Rook to a6, rook to c5, rook to a5, rook to c7, and we got a threefold repetition, a draw in the first game. Nice preparing both players. We will see today who is going to the finals. Nice game. See you later.